alphabets, I suppose, and kanji is one of them. This is the idea of kind of ma, that idea of space, and of course it comes from an idea of nirvana, you know, and it comes from this idea of a gate to the realms of kind of emptiness, from this world of illusion and darkness to the realm of emptiness, you know, which is that of reality and light, you know, which is from Chang Snodgrass. So the reality lies in the mid-space, and what you've got, you know, between opposites, you know, that's why they talk in kind of these kind of opposites. So they'll give you a set of kind of opposites, and then you're supposed to interpret things from that kind of opposites, those kind of two opposites. And here you get, in reality, you know, in one of their stroll gardens, that kind of pause, that kind of hiatus, you know, in terms of a bridge crossing a stream. Of course, it has numerous kind of reasons behind it. The pause actually makes you look at the water, look down. So there's a sensual kind of setup to it as well. But it is to do with this cut kind of continuous, that idea of that pause, which is also from no kind of drama, that kind of pause and stop. And that's kind of where that kind of emerges from. And so you have, you know, this asymmetric kind of life, you know, you have this kind of asymmetry, and it permeates all of Japanese culture, you know, right down to how they present, you know, you with food, you know, which is absolutely beautiful in one kind of way. So it's to do with the void and emptiness, horizontal kind of dominance, darkness, action spaces, duality, incompletion, mujo as the flux, you know, and this slippage and cut continues, and that's where that emerges from. And so that was the influence, I suppose, on modernism, and certainly, I mean, you could say that Wright was heavily influenced by woodcut blocks, and he collected them and presented exhibitions, and this is one of his buildings which he built in Japan. And of course the Japanese were hugely kind of influenced by concrete, and especially so after the Kanto kind of earthquake, when the only buildings which still existed, you know, were built out of concrete by the modernists. Consequently, they adopted concrete as a superior kind of construction material, and that goes with their idea of space, which is a form in its own right. Their idea of their notion of space is kind of that it's form or formal, and the West, because this distinctive kind of aesthetic of modernism had come from Japan in any case, the kind of West following the war was kind of looking towards Japan to develop another, I suppose, aesthetic, and Kishiko Kurokawa came up with metabolism, you know, which was highly influential in terms of archigram, I suppose. But if just looking at, I suppose, Japan, and I kind of want to keep going on this kind of aesthetic, this kind of asymmetry of what's going on and what's related to their culture, or what's still related to their culture, or that kind of notion of their idea. And here you've got Ando, which, I mean, his buildings are absolutely superb. They're real lyrical kind of essays. And of course this is space as a form, as a symbol, you know, which of course is the cross, you know, and you have, I suppose, participation, and modern artists, you interpret their kind of work, and here we've got Kiyoshi Sei Takayama doing the D Hotel, and you can kind of see that it's incomplete, and you complete it in your mind, so it's a conceptual kind of completion of the kind of built form or building form, and of course it rotates around and it's closed as a kind of district, so it's kind of incomplete platonic, and he talks about meaningful incompletion in terms of what he does. You know, if we look at Shigeru Ban and kind of his experiments in terms of housing, you've got very interesting kind of storage spaces in this universal kind of plane, and so you've got that coming back into it as well. So that you've still got, I suppose, what I'm talking about is a cultural kind of base. Despite the introduction of modernism into Japan, you still have a cultural kind of base, and I suppose SAA, you know, who produced this kind of housing in Kitagawa, which relies on the Engawa, this in-between space, you know, between inside and outside, and also, I suppose, asymmetrical forms in terms of these openings, which form a kind of courtyard spaces. And then again, in terms of a cafe, where you've got asymmetrical kind of distribution of the structural kind of system, which produces spaces in its own right. And so that's kind of an aesthetic kind of system, and I've kind of put in this idea of this kind of movement by stone. There is an observer-object motion presenting partial rotation and scaling, such that set of critical points and their motive relative to each other defines a spatio-temporal signature. And I think there is something about kind of moving in asymmetry, and the way that we do something, or the way that we experience kind of buildings and assemblages, which can of course be seen in most cities when you come across their monuments. So that's Japan, home of asymmetry.
I'm a PhD student in architectural design and theory program in Affective University, and also a research and teaching assistant and a PhD student at the same university. So today I will make a presentation about Portuguese architect Alvaro Siza philosophy of home and places of experiences and sensations. This paper was elaborated departing from another research that I conducted at the beginning of this year, which was about the parallelism of Siza's architectural approach and French philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty's philosophical thoughts. So during this research, I realized that Alvaro Siza makes a strong connection between architectural design and experiences and sensations of the human body and mind. This connection is extremely important when designing and building a house. So it's crucial for an architect to design a house in order to understand this private experience. Accordingly, Alvaro Siza states, as we see in the slide, an architect cannot consider himself an architect until he has built a house. This is why I think the challenge is not only to design the house, but also to design the private experience of the potential user. Every house is unique for its owner or user, like Alvaro Siza mentions here. Home is a place for experiences and sensations that cannot be found under other circumstances. It is a unique, inexplicably marvelous space. So in this direction, private house design is a challenging issue in architectural design, and where decisions are taken by the architect and the client should match in order to have a successful result. It is very unique and personal to design a home for another person because the architect is designing the experience of daily private life. This paper aims to understand how private house design is the key of our daily living and how important it is for an architect to acknowledge and to respond to the client's wishes for his or her future home. Our Siza's methods and ways of conceiving private houses are unique. His involvement in the experience of a house, designing it as it was his own house, and distancing himself from this experience at the same time, is very inspiring for young architects. This study consists of 3 parts. And the first and the second part includes the idea and the design processes of Alvaro Siza. Siza's writings and speeches about the philosophy of home and are discussed to have a better understanding of his house designing process. The third part discusses some important houses that he designed, which are chosen in order to understand how he designs home for other people, how he is involved in the design experience of living in that house, and what role his intuitions play, using plans, photographs of the houses, and writings and ideas about the design of the houses. So let's begin by Siza's architectural design approach. Peter Testa describes Alvaro Siza's architecture as cosa mentale, that means mental activity. Alvaro Siza's emergence as preeminent architect affirms architecture as mental activity, cosa mentale, that knows no centers or peripheries. This sensationist architecture represents one of the less systematized and most rigorous research programs in the history of the discipline. I think this is an important description for Siza's work. Architectural design is in fact a mental activity that with neither systematic ways nor a special workflow. It involves the transformation of the reality. That is why Testa's words summarize Siza's design approach very successfully. Because one of the most known statements of Siza is architects don't invent anything, they just transform reality. A transformation is a flow. The mental activity transforms a reality into another. For Siza, this is how architecture is made. In parallel, Santos argues in his interview with Alvaro Siza that Siza prefers things to be part of an open process that flows along a path of its own. Siza prefers not to determine this path before the actual design. Therefore, every design flows according to its own path, and every architectural act is a process that involves peculiar transformation. And this results in the fact that every design has its own indeterminate process and is unique because of this uncertainty of the path. Testa describes this fact as processus infinitum. In Siza's architecture, every work proceeds on a different indeterminate course, a processus infinitum, an active determining that interprets the world as becoming and as life. It is a matter of transformation, and this transformation process is unique for each design. This feature of Siza architecture is very important to understand why Siza is successful in private house design. It is because every private house design requires a personal connection with the design space. For Siza, every private house has its own story, so every private house design follows an indeterminate process. This is why it is important. Alvaro Siza never adopts a pre-established language in its architectural design. In the article Language, Types and Types, a consideration of the work of Alvaro Siza, Levinas quotes Siza's words as follows. My architecture does not have a pre-established language, nor does it establish a language. It is a response to a concrete problem, a situation in transformation in which I participate. In architecture, we have already passed the phase during which we thought that the unity of the language would resolve everything. A pre-established language, pure, beautiful, does not interest me. So, no pre-established language. It also refers to the same idea. Every architectural act is peculiar of its own and requires its own design process. This attitude adopted by Siza does not refer to a lack of principles. It is also obvious that he has ways of designing that he does not mention as a set of rules, nor as a pre-established language. Those are syntactical patterns, as Levinas asserts, that take shape according to various circumstances such as natural surroundings, geometry of the site, or any abstract or concrete information. Levinas explains Siza's manner as follows. Although Siza deduced syntactical patterns, he was able to avoid a certain aspect of that initial anxiety about pre-established languages. Flexible spatial patterns appear to be more spontaneous and less burdened by history than types. Let's further explain this as follows. It is not style, but it has something of a style's formulaic nature. It is not language, but like language, it seems public rather than intimate. Like words, types seem to exist independent of us. Therefore, the syntactical patterns, those of Siza makes use of, do not change the reality that he doesn't follow a specific language of design. Another interesting fact that Siza often indicates in his interviews or writings is that in Portuguese the term risco both signifies risk and sketch. This means that every project brings a new risk. Siza overcomes this risk, immersing himself into the indeterminate processes of design, and he often uses sketches as a medium to solve the problems that he encounters during design process. He states that one indication of the project difficulty is the number of draft sketches I have to produce until I find the right path. He argues that making a project is like knitting. If you work on the ends and crochet threads, everything moves ahead of its own accord. Architectural knowledge and construction methods are as important as the design processes for Siza, because the adaptation of the project to the site is one of the most important design criteria for him. Therefore, designing a project becomes part of the natural environment, like in most Siza designs, necessitates a high intellectuality about construction techniques. Another important and concrete knowledge in Siza design is craftsmanship. Siza accentuates craftsmanship design in private house designs as well as in bigger public scale buildings. Designing the experiences and sensations of a place requires sensitivity as well as architectural knowledge and experience. Sensitivity in architecture constitutes the most personal and intimate part of the architectural performance. Siza argues that he doesn't think he has a special sensitivity, but however he explains this question of sensitivity as follows. It is a question of letting yourself impregnate to the things that are invisible but in the air. So let's continue with the philosophy of home of Alvaro Siza. The design of a house is a complex process where the owner and the architect both participate in several ways. It is very critical for the architect to be involved in this procedure of designing the daily life experience for another. Siza's ideas from the conversation between Enrico Morteni, Alessandra Ciancetta, and Alvaro Siza is as follows. To design is to travel through space, time, occupy this house in your imagination. Therefore, the architect must imagine himself in the client's skin, the skin of his wife. He must become a child, a grandparent, cleaning woman, etc. This multitude is gradually drawing on the one hand, and on the globality, and on the other, a density of the artwork, the space, the walls, a very strong identity. What is designed becomes the design of the father, mother, children, grandchildren, etc. The personal sensitivity that we discussed in the previous chapter plays an immense role in this situation. Private houses involve dreams of the client and the designer, architect, must imagine in order to reach the design experience that the client would like to live. The dreams of the client and the architect may not always match in some situations, or it may be impossible to construct. However, it is crucial for the architect to understand and to recognize the dreams, senses, ways of living, and the habits of the potential users. Siza indicates that he wrote an article, an essay, entitled "All the Houses by an Architect Are His House," where he argues, when you build a house, you are experimenting with an experience. But that experience, which is designed for somebody else, necessarily involves distancing yourself from your own ideas. Although paradoxically, they have to be present because otherwise the house will never turn out well. All the problems related to the experience of living in a house have to become your problems, although you are perfectly aware that you are building a house for somebody else, which means distancing yourself at the same time that you are participating. That clearly means that the architect is supposed to reach a balance between owning and disowning the experience of the house. The designed experience is finally for somebody else, and the owner's sensations will count once the house has been constructed. However, the architect ensures the client's wishes, combining them with his own experience, because experiences and sensations are individual. This balance is a critical issue in the success of the experience that will be lived in this house in the future. It is also interesting to view that Alvaro is very concerned about different experiences lived in the house. These are not only sensational experiences, but also the struggle of daily living and as well as domestic disasters. He has an essay entitled Living a House, sharing his ideas about functional experiences of the house. He mentions that he considers himself as a functionalist in this direction. Mostly summarizes what would be an authentic house for Siza, who claims that he never could design a real authentic house. First, the inhabitant occupancy is different in private houses from other types of buildings because the occupancy relates the house to the actual life. Size is an important aspect of Siza's designs because he likes labyrinthine spaces where body scale is important, and most of his spaces seem small to most of people. Motin describes this attitude with the word millimetric. Organization of the spaces results in a more poetic way. Each different and not interchangeable, in which labyrinthine paths, secret corners and dark passages all tend towards a sophisticated and poetic spontaneity. According to Levinas, Siza's interior and exterior spaces interior and exterior places are spaces of transition and mediation, and Motin sees it as a threshold to describe it and gives the example of the area of penumbra. So rapidly I will pass to the case study part. Despite the fact that Siza's work cannot be classified under typologies, for his private houses there is a systematized information and grouping of private house designs through syntactical patterns and site typology. There are first of all suburban lot houses the most, which are divided into introverted houses with ARCHTHEO plan and compact houses, more recent. And also, secondly, there are isolated houses designed usually on a slope with linear types and house with a central patio. And lastly, there is some additions to the existing houses that and this line is a chronological line, so what is recent and what's old. The first house is Casa Alves Costa. That's a private house designed in 1965 in Moledo de Minho for Henrique Fernando Alves Costa and his family. The house is a compact style with introvert plan. All spaces have a direct relation with the outside, and however, the outside spaces has a limited view of the sea. This design decision creates an intimate and a withdrawn space. Henrique Fernando Alves Costa's son, Alexandra Alves Costa, states that Siza would spend a few days of vacation there and he would create an atmosphere of a certain intimacy with his clients when he is designing the house. He mentioned in his interview that Siza managed to persuade his clients, Alves Costa's parents, in several situations that were not practical or logical to them. First of all, Siza decided to create an intimate house, cutting the view of the sea, telling the owner who wants to see the water that is boring to see the sea all day long. It is an interesting decision, in fact. So, the son Alexandra states that now they say, we decided to cut the view of the sea. Alexandra's mother wanted to see the wood bare, but Siza managed to persuade to paint all the walls and the construction wood with the same color, because for him the design of a whole space is important, not the details. Siza worked in body scale, so some spaces seem so tiny to the client. The bedroom was so tiny that the father would say, "I can sleep in here." So Siza tried on the ground to convince the man, the father, that the bedroom ensures enough space to sleep. Siza listened to them and showed them what could be done. And I think this is a good method for keeping the balance between his imagination and the client's dreams. So these are the plan and the sketches of the house. The second house is Casa Vieiro de Castro. Casa Vieiro de Castro lies in good topography as a project and has a strong relation with the ground. The outdoor space is rich and there is a clear relationship with the exterior space. It is designed for a couple, so it is not very big. Along with the topography, walls, paths form a harmonious composition, and the core of the project is the fireplace where inhabitants can gather around. Speaking about this project in an interview, Siza underlines a very important aspect of ownership and belonging. The construction of one's own house is a dream and a reality. And reality is difficult to bring into fruition. It's not easy. Over the course of the time, I have nonetheless noted that a privileged relationship between the client and the architect is no longer very common. It is beginning to disappear. The very meaning of the family in our society is probably undergoing a profound evolution. So these are the plan and some photos of the house who are not, it is designed for an older couple who have grandchildren and children who have independent rooms. It also has a separate kitchen part and a fireplace. So the third, because Antonio Carlos Siza is designed for his brother. Just as for other clients, he observes the habits of his brother, and he knows, for example, his brother likes to eat outside but be sheltered from neighbors. He states that, I believe that in this house I've created a dynamic space, though in a very limited context. An expansion of the space, but at the same time a sensation of intimacy. The labyrinthine path that we can see there. So, he further adds that he wants to define spaces with sensation of protection and openness at the same time. Siza is known as closely tied to this house because even this house doesn't belong to his brother now. He is eager to make changes and he plays a role in the maintenance of the house. So, the conclusion. It could be said that Siza is an architect who believes in the active participation of the client and the architect both in the design and the construction phases of the home experience. For being successful in this process, Siza imagines himself as an inhabitant, to live the dream in order to be able to design in an appropriate home experience. He behaves as a functionalist and a sensationalist at the same time to make the house better and feel good. He likes labyrinthine paths, secret corners, dark passages, indoor and outdoor transitions, preferably small places that make his work more poetic and more sensational. He also tries to persuade the clients in order to reach the aesthetical and functional effects that clients would like to have. He believes that the relationship between the client and the architect is crucial and is starting to disappear. He is also closely tied to some houses that he has built, and he plays a role in the maintenance issues. These are some of my references. Thank you for listening. So if you have questions.
Thank you for all the presentations. I have a question for Gary. I'm interested in your investigation about especially about the relationship or interaction between the East and the West in the philosophy of asymmetry and space and so on. I just wonder if you also looked at, historically, have you looked at how similarities or differences in the way that the Europeans and the Japanese themselves understood or interpret the Japanese philosophy of asymmetry or spaces, or yeah.
Yes, I have looked at that. I've looked into that, and Japanese people think very differently than we do, because of course they have a different language, and one of the main kind of points is that they actually leave you hanging. Their language leaves you hanging, and that's they represent two things. You could say we live asymmetrically, couldn't you? Because we would kind of, if you think about Hawking's explanation of the universe, we live on an explosion, don't we? And it can only go in one direction, and you can't time travel like Doctor Who does, if we really think about it. But I think it's interesting, that idea of kind of language, and then different cultures' understanding of it and how you interpret it. And I can only interpret one thing as a European. I look at it and I see, I understand it a particular way, and I know that a Japanese person will understand it differently, simply because of the way that they think of their language. They do tend to think in these opposites, and also they tend to think of space as a form, rather than actually, so it has form, space has form, even though it's ineffable. So even though it's kind of constantly changing, it kind of has form to it, where if we think of space as nothingness, and it's quite a different kind of thought kind of process, and of course I can never really put myself in their shoes. I see it from my perspective very much so, and I'm aware of that. Does that answer it?
Yeah. Thank you. Because for me, it's very interesting to think about. How different we actually think about something, but actually we share something that's just intricate, then in probably different way according to the culture, things like that. And
I lived in Japan for a while, and they refused to explain what wabi-sabi was to me. They just said it was musakashi, it's difficult, and so I think I went and I asked somebody who'd been a Buddhist monk to explain it to me, and he didn't explain it at all. He simply took me through a series of gardens. So he took me on a walk, effectively, and I think that was quite an interesting way to explain it. He didn't say anything at all. Yeah.
Thank you.
I also have a question for you. So, about ma, do they use it in the house? And how do they use it?
Well, it's just a normal kind of word, and it actually means lots of different things. So I tried to explain, all the kind of different things that it meant. And actually, you can refer to the whole of Japan. Every single person in Japan, is ma, effectively. You can refer to just one space, as ma, and they use it all the time. Because it means all these different things, you have to work out what it means in the particular situation that they're using it, and that's very typical of their language as well. That actually words have kind of different meanings. Like kashi, can mean kind of bridge, or it can mean chopsticks, or so they actually mean different things in their language, and it's only by context or through the context you end up understanding what it means. So although I speak Japanese, very often I can't understand what they're talking about. So because they miss out context, or it's very much to do with their kind of culture, what they're talking about, and because I don't actually have that knowledge of their culture necessarily, I can't understand the context, or I'm missing some part of the context. So just understanding the words does not necessarily give you, the actual meaning that they're saying.
Do they use ma understanding in the modern way of their designing?
Oh yes, they do. And then the S-A-N-A-A, that part, they've talked about it as kind of a topological kind of space, that actually you have no idea of the outside, and that's what that is, that different distribution. And I think if you look at some of their Sendai Mediatek, if you look at Ito Sendai Mediatek, you start to look at a different idea of supporting a building where the column becomes space in its own right. And I think, that I talk about, the kind of fluctuating kind of black column and then you look at, Toyoto's kind of column where the column is actually a space in its own right, so it's distributed, and it kind of supports the building. And they've kind of distributed support structures in a kind of different way, which I think is interesting. Rem Koolhaas used it as well on Villa del Abba. It's kind of a tree kind of setup that supports one element of the building. But they use it in everyday context, but they use it all the time, and the tatami mats kind of flow as well. So it's an ineffable space. It doesn't they talk about it as space, but that space is constantly changing. And that's how they talk about it. It's more like a kind of a sea or flowing water, if you like. And that's of course their idea, that everything is a flow, everything is a flux. So it has real meaning to them, as a flow, as a flux, as an inevitable kind of ever-changing kind of interpretation or form.
Thank you.
Erdem Bey'e bir soru sormak istiyorum. İkamet etmenin gerçek anlamı üzerine derin sarsıcı, psikolojik açıdan güçlü bir metindir. Özellikle de farkındalıklarımızı tahammülün sınırlarına taşıdınız. Teşekkür ediyorum. Yaşamamış olmayı son anda fark etmektense gündelik yaşantıyı bir süreliğine de askıya almak üzerine insan ister istemez kendi kulübelerini düşünüyor. Hani o çocukluğumuzdaki kulübeleri, masallardaki kulübeleri, Knut Hamsun'un, Ceylan'ın, Aytmotos'un, yani bütün kulübeleri düşündüğümüzde hepsinde bu iz bırakmış olanlarda yeryüzünü öz varlığın da bırakmak üzere sadece en gerçek olanı yalınlığıyla ölmenin ötesinde bir tekinsizlikten beslendiğini görüyoruz. Öyle değil mi? Siz de bunu çok güzel ifade ettiniz konuşmanızın notalamanın bir kısmında. Yani bu tekinsizlik ve gerilim bize o estetik hazzı veriyor. İkamete de bizi yönlendiren, şiirselliğe yönlendiren. Peki şöyle düşündüğümde ben işin içinden çıkamadım. Sizin bunun tam tersi, mesela mevsimlerin dönüşümlerini yaşamayacağımız böyle bir mekan olsa, yumuşak, palmiyeler altında, uysal bir deniz kıyısında sazlanan bir barınak. Bu anlamda bir kulübeniz var mı sizin? Kişisel mi oldu bu soru?
Yok, öyle değil. Buradaki kulübe aslında sıradan bir insanın o mütevazi, o tanrısına boyun eğmiş diyelim, ya da o ölçünün içinde yaşayan insanın kulübesi değil aslında buradaki örnekler. Yani belki tarihsel olarak oradan başladı, oradan gidiyor. İşte Vitruvius öyle bir kulübeden bahsetti. Logier belki öyle bir kulübeyi bize ima etti ama ne Wittgenstein'ın, ne Thoreau'nun, ne Heidegger'in kulübeleri bu türden kulübeler değil. Bu insanlar modern insanlar ve bu gündelik hayattaki bu çelişkiyi yaşıyorlar. Ara ara bir takım kaçış noktaları bulmaya çalışıyorlar kendilerine. Olmuyor tabii, bu gerçekleşmesi o pek bağlantılı olan bir şey değil. Ama neyi nerede kaybettiğimizi hissetmek için, anlamak için bireysel bir deney alanı ya da bir deneyim bölgesi olarak bu kulübeyi seçiyorlar. Heidegger'de bütün hayatını kulübede geçirmiş değil. 52 yıl boyunca o kulübeye gidiyor. Ama zaman zaman üniversitedeki ya da üniversitesinin yani rektörlük yaptığı Freiburg Üniversitesi'ne ya da Marburg'daki yere, oradaki şehirdeki evine gidip kütüphanesindeki çalışmalarını arada bir yapıyor. Yani bu Thoreau'nun inzivası 2 yıl, 2 ay, 2 gün sürüyor ama tekrar geri dönmek zorunda kalıyor. Bu tam bir oraya kendini adama sadece orada olma hali olsaydı çok daha çarpıcı olacaktı kesinlikle. Ama bunları hatırlamak gerekiyor diye düşünüyorum.
Çok teşekkür ederim.
Hello, I would have a question for Milos. I would like to ask you if you have any knowledge of the houses of these philosophers that you have presented, because especially related to the talk before you. And I would be interested to know if Patočka was always living in the Czech Republic, or if he has migrated like Levinas says from Lithuania to France, and in this way the intimacy of the home would be opposed to the danger of a new territory somehow.
Okay, as I know, both philosophers lived in a flat. There, maybe Levinas has some house in the countryside, but I'm not quite sure about it. The issue of Patočka's dwellings quite particular because in the late 60s he lived in his son-in-law house somewhere in the first floor. There was a really small flat. After his wife's death, there was about 2 rooms full of books, as I know. So it's impossible to find some house so comparable with that countryside house well known of Heidelberg. And what concerns the situation or the origin of, or how to say, of Patočka, he was really Czech. He lived in Prague, as I know, all life, except several years he spent during his studies in Paris, Berlin and Freiburg. He was a pupil of Heidegger and Husserl there. So he was Czech, he was Catholic, of Catholic religion, so as I know, no ancestors of Jewish or some others.
Hello, I'd like to ask about the Alvaro's Siza philosophy of designing homes. Actually, there are 2 times that I heard about that you said that he had to persuade the clients. So I think as a star architect, he may persuade the clients because it would be easy for him because he's well known and also applauded by lots of audience. I mean, all throughout the world. And somehow maybe it would be easy for him to persuade the client or order even the client to get the same degree of the agreement. So, but if, let's say that if he's an ordinary architect, then he has to perceive that there are always some clashes in between the user and the owner. What do you think could be the strategy to make this, let's say, compensation in between? Because it's not so easy. I mean, this is all the time that we have this problem. And then maybe we have to also understand more extraordinary philosophy of the Siza, and then maybe there are some more different cases of it. Because, for example, like his brother, the house that he designed for his brother, that you said that the brother is not living there, so this is a kind of sign that I don't know why he's not living there. He's disagree, or he's not pleased, or he pleased, or I mean, so this thing like is creating a kind of thin line in the dialogue between the user and the architect. So thank you very much.
So first of all, I would like to answer your last question. For the brother, I don't have any clue if he lived in here, or he decided to leave the house, or he was not able in living in the house. I don't have any clue, so I won't make any comments on that. But as Alvaro Siza is very known, and let's not call him a star architect, but because he is not behaving like a star architect. He is, I think he is able to put himself in the client's place and understand how the client wants a space of his own. So I think it's quite interesting for him to know or try to know how a house can be designed. Every time he has a different kind of a house, of a private house in his life. So for every client, he tries another thing. So I told about syntactical patterns, and they, of course, people who want to make, who want to hire Alvaro Siza for designing their house know how he designs a house, because they have seen their old houses, his old houses that he made for other people. It is possible to see now when you want to design, to make a design for a house, that when you hire an architect, you may see his old designs and decide if he is going to he will design your house or not. You are able to decide that if you are a client. So for younger architects, I think Alvaro Siza is a good teacher, because he never behaves like a star architect, like you said in your script. I think it's very important to understand each time a new experience with each new house, and Siza does that. So it will be a good example for young architects that are not as known as Siza.
Okay, I told Star Architect because she's one of the stars for me.
Yes, for Portuguese architects, yes.
But I think there are lots of architects and behave in that way. You like to know your user, and like, for example, we have Cengiz Bektaş, also known as in that way, that he actually lived with the user for a while,
yes,
to know them. So, but just I want to see what is the difference between the Alvaro Siza's the process of to making design and the others. So because this is so normal to me, and I think it's so normal for all architects. So maybe you could, detect more process, more interview, more dialogues that we may understand that what is the extraordinary things happen in different houses.
Yes,
Different cases. Project would be, just I like to know maybe later. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello. I'd like to thank you all for your presentations. I am a master's student from EMU, and I'd like to ask a question to Miss İlgi Hacıhasanoğlu. As Alvaro Siza says, I'm here, by the way, sorry. As Alvaro Siza says, my architecture does not have a pre-established language, nor does it establish a language. Is that a formal pre-established language that he is mentioned of non-existence? If so, does the houses that he designed speak his certain language of form, or he creates a different language for each specific client? If not, which one of those, formal, spatial, or functional language, which one of those is it that he is talking about?
So it is very complicated, in fact, because Levinas says that those are syntactical patterns. So it is like, you know, it's like, it's not style, it's not language, it's not some others languages, pre-established language like, you know, modernism or minimalism. It's not like that. It is syntactical pattern, and you may think a syntactical pattern like a behavior when you think of a person, for example. It is they may not be aware of what they are doing exactly, but a behavior is something that is peculiar for a person.
Peculiar?
Yes, for a person. So you may know it's his behavior and it's not some other's behavior. It's like I think that Alvaro Siza's syntactical patterns are like behaviors. It's not. It has nothing to do with language, I believe. We may express them as language in some houses, for some houses, but for private houses, you know, the thing I showed with different styles of houses, these are not styles. These are syntactical patterns. These are like form patterns, but every time there are new experiences inside. So it's not, everything is different from another.
So can we say that we can recognize one of these buildings by their form specifically, or he tries to find different formal languages on each building that he designs for different clients?
The syntactical patterns we may recognize, yes. We may say this is Alvaro Siza's house, but they don't like to express them as a language because it doesn't fit in modernism, it doesn't fit in minimalism or any pre-established language. The difference is that. But Alvaro Siza has a specific language of his own. We may say that. It's the syntactical pattern. Okay?
Well, maybe we should give a lunch break. Okay, thank you.